our videos how to think like a grandmaster. No, I'm not a grandmaster, however, I am going to reveal some ideas that grandmasters have in mind and I'll try to explain them. Okay, so I'm streaming this webinar on Twitch and YouTube. Please let me know if the sound is good. Okay. So, okay, everything is good. So, by the way, guys, do you follow the match? Today is the game number 8. No, the score is in Magnus Carlsen's favor. Unfortunately, I was... No, I was hoping that Ian Nepomniachtchi could... Okay, yeah, I'm hoping Ian Nepomniachtchi can do his best and probably outplay the world champion, and this is how we can get a new world champion. Okay, the internet looks good, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, everything should be fine. Of course, everyone is watching the match. Yeah, just a sec. What was played there already? Oh, we are not going to cover the game today, the game between Magnus and Ian Nepomniachtchi, but I will keep you in touch. I will keep you updated about what's going on. So, just a sec. I'll show you. So in the game, Magnus is playing with white pieces. It was e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, Russian game, and here d4, knight takes e4, bishop d3, d5, and knight takes e5. So just an ordinary Russian game. No, it's called modern attack, central variation, knight d7, knight takes d7, no, knight d2, knight takes d2. The position is absolutely symmetrical. Bishop d6 castle, and this is where black could castle and probably would equalize the position, but they played h5, starting the kingside attack, queen e1, king moves to f8. No, the idea of this move is to support the bishop, and bishop b4 was played after. Without a dark squared bishop, it will be difficult to succeed with the kingside attack. Queen e7, bishop d6, queen d6, queen d2, rook e8, rook a1, and rook h6. So Ian Nepomniachtchi wants to join this rook. It may be to e6 or to f6, depends on him. However, I think black attack is unlikely to succeed. Okay, fine. So what we're gonna do today? We are going to analyze the games of Ian Nepomniachtchi, and we'll try to understand the logic behind his moves. And this is how you may learn how grandmaster thinks and what you should do to be able to think like a grandmaster. Of course, not every chess player may become a grandmaster. No, it should be a gifted and a hardworking person. whose passion is chess and who has enough money, time to invest into his chess career. So such a person can become a grandmaster. Of course, not every not every chess player, even me, for example, I just don't have enough time to invest in it, but I would love to become. If, for example, I got enough money for living and I wouldn't think about conducting classes to my students to earn some money or something like that, like doing courses, I would probably focus on becoming a grandmaster, and I think I would achieve it. Like, for example, my peers did it. Such grandmasters like Pavel Maletin and Sergei Yudin, and of course Dmitry Bocharov, who became no, among these people, he became the world, the first grandmaster from Novosibirsk at that time. Okay, so we are going to start with the analysis of the game that Ian Nepomniachtchi played at the age of 12. It was World Championship under 12, so he was even below 12. I mean under 12. Okay, he was playing with black pieces. He got into the, he was under the attack, and then he found the way how to successfully defend and simplify. Oh, okay. That time he wasn't a grandmaster, he was about a national master or candidate master. Knight c3, e6, f4. And here in my course, the victorious Count Sicilian, I suggest to play e6, then knight f3, d5. In this game, after f4, Jan replied with knight e6, which is a possible move, and for example, after bishop b5, just knight g7. But white replied with knight f3. Again, here a6 and d5 looks good, but g6 was played by Ian Nepomniachtchi, is fine. This is a normal move. Bishop b5, knight g7 still looks good, but knight d4 is slightly better. Taking here means to lose a tempo and make the bishop an object of the attack. Castle, bishop g7, bishop comes to d3, which is actually a bad spot. Why not to take on b5 early? I think it's because of knight getting there, and we can't play this move right now. We have to spend the tempo on something like d6 to secure this square, and then they play d4 immediately, and white will be developed much better in such a case. Okay, bishop g7, bishop d3, knight e7, e5 here, closing the bishop, but d6, Jan undermines it. And immediately after the first basic moves in the opening were played, white decided to initiate the attack. It was knight e4, d takes e5, f takes e5, castle first, and they continued with c3. I'm not sure that this move is good. If you were white, what do you think is the most logical move for white in this position if, for example, they would like to succeed in the kingside attack? How would you start? Instead of c3, I want you to suggest the move for white that allows white to start the kingside attack. Do you guys see my new cup? I'm preparing for a new year. Yeah, so parallax, thanks. Yes, it's knight f6. Knight f6. That sacrifice could make sense. I don't think black can ignore it. So if black takes, then knight takes f3, queen takes f3, knight f5. The pawn is a weakness, but actually white has a compensation. For example, they can play g4. However, even here, black finds a way how to solve the problem with the pin. What do you think? What's the best move for black? Not to lose this knight on f5. Yeah, it's just queen g5. I agree with you. Queen g5, bishop e2, knight g7, and knight is blocked here. They are about to play d4. No, actually, the next move is d4, and this is where I believe white has a compensation for the pawn they sacrificed. With two bishops, they definitely has a strong initiative, but the position is playable for both. So let's go back. Knight f6 wasn't played at this critical moment. Instead, c3, knight takes f3, queen takes f3, and bishop e5. However, now black should expect white penetrating into their camp, so probably with knight f6, something like that. If, for example, knight c5, which looks like a move that gains a pawn back, well, then black can continue with queen c7 and capture the pawn on h2. So bishop c2 was played. Bishop c2. How would you play? Now it's time to think like a grandmaster. What do you think happened then? What may happen then? Okay, no worries. Guys who just joined us recently, we are talking about the games of Ian Nepomniachtchi, and by example of these games, we are trying to understand the logic behind his moves and the way how the grandmaster thinks. Actually, this game that we are currently analyzing was played when Ian Nepomniachtchi was at the age of 12. So that time he wasn't a grandmaster, he was a strong candidate master. Knight d5 and f5. Maybe it deserves attention, but I believe d4 can be played with a temper. This is what I don't like. They can play bishop g5, bishop h6. Yeah, actually. Knight d5, d4, c takes d4, bishop h6. No, this is not a good move. The f7 is hanging, so bishop goes there. They may exchange and then play c4. You have to retreat. They occupy here. No, I'm not sure that this is the exact move order that gives a better position for white. Right now, I believe black is fine. So, if we go back, knight d5. Knight d5, knight c5 can be played because after queen c7, just d4, letting them take, and now the king side is open. Just king h1, and the king side is open for the enemy bishop to penetrate. This is not a good idea. That's why Ian Nepomniachtchi plays c4. He fixes the pawn on d2. d4, c takes d3, bishop takes d3. What makes the bishop the object of the attack if the queen moves to a different rank? What then? How would you play if you were black in this position? Okay. No ideas? Okay. No, f5 makes sense. Why f5? So it always makes sense to advance the f pawn to be able to join the pieces, to get some space and join the pieces to the defense. For example, bishop h6, bishop g7. Bishop takes bishop, king takes there, knight c5, but after queen d6, black is fine. They have a strong center, and looks like white has no ideas how to continue the kingside attack anymore. No, this pawn on b7 isn't hanging. The bishop here is the object of the attack. Moreover, knight b7 and queen b6 looks good. Yeah, queen b6. Okay, so f5 was a good defense. Ian Nepomniachtchi didn't play it. I am not sure why. Maybe didn't notice. Knight f5, g4, and queen b6 now. They block with their rook. What do you think was the best option for black in this position? They actually made a mistake here. Knight e7 or knight h4? No, knight g7 was played by Ian Nepomniachtchi. However, the best move is knight h4. Knight h4 forces the queen to move. And in this position, looks like the knight is trapped. g5 or queen d8 doesn't make much sense. For example, queen d8, bishop g5. But f5 works. f5. What's the idea of this move? No, first of all, if queen takes f takes e4, the rook is pinned. For example, bishop e4, and then just bishop d6. Before e5, for example, the pin exists. No, the position is slightly better for black. If they don't take, let's say they play bishop e3, for example, then f takes g4 works. The queen has to leave the the third rank, and the bishop will be hanging. Oh, maybe this move first, this check, king goes back, but the queen has to go, and then queen takes e3 is a check. What else? Maybe move the knight instead of bishop e3. If, for example, they move the knight, no, let's say to g5, then what's your opinion? Actually, almost same thing happened in the game later, so that's why let's go back and just continue with the analysis of knight g7, what happened in the game. How would you play in this position? This is where white could win but miss their opportunity. Knight f6? No, let's check. Knight f6, for example, bishop f6, queen f6, and then maybe e5 to exchange. And if queen e5, then just bishop g4. No, knight f6 doesn't look good. But you are almost right. Here the idea is to occupy the f6 square with the knight. However, black is always ready to exchange their bishop for that knight. So what to do first before doing this exchange? Knight g5. I don't think knight g5 makes much sense. Then f5 just. Bishop h6. Nepo wasn't a grandmaster. His rating at that moment was 2243. Okay, so here the winning move is, no, knight g5 was played in the game, but the winning move is bishop f4 with the idea to get rid of this bishop and play knight f6. How? No, let's say take, knight f6 check, king h8 of course, and after queen f4, queen goes to h6, queen h7, the game is over. There is almost nothing they can do. No, they have to sacrifice the queen on f6, but of course it doesn't work. It only delays. If queen c7, then knight f6, still king goes there, and queen h3. So the bishop is pinned. That's why only h5 works. But after h5, g takes h5. And then the king is in trouble. So bishop f4 was a winning move, which white didn't find, but they played knight g5. However, then after f5, the position is good. White could probably continue with bishop e3, queen d8, and rook d1 with some pressure on f5 and through the d file, but the position is approximately equal. Oh, guys, I see that the stream is working actually. It looks like you have some internet problems, maybe because of everyone streams chess on Twitch, or maybe because just some local internet problems that you have. So f5, and the opponent of Ian Nepomniachtchi, whose name is actually Jonathan Durer-Rousseau, played queen h3. That was a complete blunder. Please take the advantage of black position and win the game just in a few moves. So please suggest what black should do. Okay, guys, so still waiting for your suggestions. The question for Parallax: what if king goes to the corner after you take the rook and deliver a check? Okay, yeah, that's right. So queen takes f2. That's the best move. What's the idea? If now king captures, then f takes g4 delivers a check, and this is how black just gains the rook for free. They sacrifice their queen for a rook on f2 and then take the enemy queen for free. For example, king g2, pawn takes queen, knight takes h3, and black is completely winning. In the game, white reacted with king h1. Queen e1 looks good and maybe is the best move, but what is the most simple way to play to get an advantage which is enough to be able to succeed? This is where you may learn something. So this is where you may think like a grandmaster. Of course, especially when you are in a time trouble, why not to simplify the position? Why not to simplify? And here Jan just plays queen takes h2. Instead of finding the best move, he just simplifies, passes the game into absolutely winning endgame, and black resigns. Oh, I mean white resigns, that's it. So of course h5 here was the best move, queen e1 is the second best move, but queen h2 is the most simple move. So he sacrifices the bishop, but he was already a rook up. After f takes g4, he has rook plus 3 pawns for a bishop, which is more than enough to succeed even for 1600 player. That time Magnus was 2200 player. Or not Magnus, but Ian Nepomniachtchi was 2200 player. So then they played a few more moves, which didn't make much sense. king h3, check, he goes back, and after bishop d5, white lost their bishop and resigned. So here black was under the attack, but he exploited the mistake that white played with queen h3. Moreover, f5 is a good move, which allowed black to get some space and defend the king, and also keep the take the advantage of the pin on f2. So what you should learn here, always simplify if it's possible, especially if you have extra material. And the second thing, f5, something that allows to get your king to get more space, what probably may allow you to bring more pieces to the king side to protect your weaknesses, such as h7. Okay. Now a minute of a self-promotion. So, you know, I just released the course, which is called Play Chess Like Nepo. I published it on my website, and it's currently on sale. However, I just don't see the number of sales I expected. I don't know why, because I believe this is my best course, where I cover several aspects of almost all the aspects of a chess game, and where I emphasize where you may learn from Ian Nepomniachtchi. So I'm explaining how to take the advantage if your opponent doesn't play the opening properly. I'm showing how to attack according to Ian, then how he finds tactical combinations, how he calculates them, how he outplays his opponent in a strategical way, and of course how he defends the position, and about his endgame technique. This is where you may learn. For example, my student, actually, wait a sec, here you can get this course in a half price, 49 and 50. I'll share this link for you. The coupon code is sale. Okay, just a sec. So this is the link for you. Okay, the question from okay, there is a question. That was a Carlsen Nepo game from the past. Where? No, it's not. Currently, I'm analyzing the game that Ian Nepomniachtchi played at the age of 12 against a strong young chess player from France, if I'm not mistaken. He played it at the World Championship under 12. So this is young, unknown chess player. Okay, and one more thing I wanted to tell you about the course that I'm offering to you. So, for example, one of my students, Michael, who just enrolled into this course last week, watched the section devoted to how to attack according to Ian and applied it in his game. Just a quick game where I explain how did he use what he learned. Oh, actually, Michael is about 1650 on chess.com. So he is a club player. Okay, it was Steveningen e6 move. Bishop e3, why not? Another strategy here is g4, carries attack. But I suggest bishop e3. However, carries attack is strong enough. Bishop e7, bishop e2. Oh, here I suggest to play f3, queen d2, g4. Maybe he forgets, or I don't know why, but he played this move. a6, f4, queen c7. So queen d2, it's a kind of a mistake because he combines two plans with bishop e2 on castle king side and queen d2 castle queen side. This is inaccuracy. But then black also played inaccuracy. They decided to move the knight to d7. This move is possible for the positions when white already advanced the pawn. But right now, knight fd7 doesn't make much sense. White castles to the queen side, and black plays g6. Maybe he wanted to play f5, maybe just to prevent f5 from white. King b1, some prophylaxis which is not obligatory in this position. Knight c6, rook d f1, preparing for f5. Black reacted with h5 to prevent g4 activity. White played h4. So you see, this is the game between two club players. They all make mistakes. According to the black plan, they should play b5, bishop b7, and maybe castle long. But they castle kingside. And how would you play in this position? What do you think? How would you play in this position if you were white? This is what my student was unfamiliar with, but after he watched the attacking section of the course, play chess like Nepo, he learned it. Okay, f5 is a normal move. No, f5, then probably e takes f5, g takes f5, and maybe something like knight f6. Maybe not knight f6, but queen a5. That makes sense. But there is no concrete way to win the game. Forky suggests g4, knight d5. Okay, Forky, could you please explain g4 and what after h takes g4? Ron also suggested g4. Ron, so it's a question for you too. So here parallax is correct. Exactly. This is what Michael learned from the course when I explained the game, and Ian Nepomniachtchi played such a move to maintain the attack when it looked like the attack is already over. So g4, and after h takes g4, just h5 to open the king's position. What happened then? Well, for example, if they take, the game is over. Rook g1, rook takes g4, and the checkmate is very close. g5 was played. Rook fg1. Knight d4, bishop d4, and f6 to protect. No, because playing f6 immediately didn't work because of knight e6. That's why they exchanged the knights first. Rook g4, e5. Potentially attacking the rook, but knight d5 first, queen d8, and f takes g5. So here this bishop is not hanging. G takes f6, king f7, f takes e7, for example, and the game is over. The checkmate will be delivered soon. Moreover, black is down the material. That's why they played f takes g5, but it didn't make sense anyway, because knight takes the bishop. There is no enough defenders of the g5 pawn. Rook takes g5, king h8. Bishop retreats. Maybe there was a better move like rook g6, queen h6, something like that. But bishop c3, because Michael didn't notice a concrete win. Knight f6, and he played rook g6 in this position. Black plays bishop e6, and looks like they finished their development, but after queen h6, they lose the material. They played queen h7 in the game, and after rook f6, they are down a bishop. If instead they block with the knight, they lose the bishop anyway. So this is where black resigned. Okay, so this idea was exactly what Ian Nepomniachtchi tried in one of his games, and he successfully defeated Viktor Laznichka, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about this exact game. You can find it in the course. You can also learn a lot from the course. So while it's on sale, don't miss your chance. Fine. Let's continue with the second game that I prepared for today. The game between Ian Nepomniachtchi, who is again playing with black pieces, against Zhou Jianchao, a grandmaster from China. In this game, I want you to pay attention to how black properly located their pieces after they finish the opening stage of the game. All these pieces were focused on the enemy castle or in the enemy king side position. So knight f3, d5, d4, c6. No, this is not the best move. So, for example, in my London course, how to defeat London system with black, I recommend playing knight f6. The course is going to be released on Chessable soon. But c6, this is how I played when I was much younger. c4, e6, and the game transposed to semi-Slav. But white plays e3, and this is where you may take the advantage if you are a grandmaster. Like, what do you suggest, guys? How would you play? Imagine you are already a grandmaster, you know a lot of openings, you met this position several times, and you know how to take the advantage of e3 in this exact position. So please suggest a move, and and maybe you can also explain the main idea and the strategy after you play this move. Ron suggests queen a5. What's the purpose of queen a5? Queen a5, knight c3, or bishop d2. Okay, guys, knight f6, and knight f6 is the standard move. Ron, queen a5, bring the queen in attack to control the center, but bishop d2, let's say, and what the queen does on a5, I think the queen has to retreat. Okay, so Parallax suggests g5. Interesting. I've never seen this move in this position. But let me check if anybody played it. Okay, according to Lichess database, nobody. I mean, nobody among titled players. Okay, first of all, bishop d6 was played, which is a natural move. But that's not the main idea. Bishop e2, and this is where black played f5. This opening is called a stone wall and is a good weapon against white if they keep the bishop on c1. So if the bishop is not here or there, then a stone wall is a good weapon. Please keep it in mind. As for g5, I think it's a mistake. Yeah, of course it's a novelty, but it's a mistake. So, when you're a grandmaster, you already have several openings to play, and you know them well. And it means that depending on the move order that your opponent plays, you can always deviate and choose the strategy that you are more comfortable. Choose the opening you are more comfortable, and which may emphasize the weaknesses that your opponent already created in his position. Here, his main weakness is leaving the bishop on c1. That's why you may occupy the center with f5 move. So your bishop is bad, that's why you can play his bishop is bad, your bishop is bad too in this strategy. That's why it's equal. Now queen a5, bishop b4. Oh, let's go back. So queen a5, bishop b4 doesn't make sense when the bishop is here on d2. So f5. Castle, knight f6, b3. What can you say about b3 move? What white intends to play, and what would you play if you were a strong chess player, or if you are a strong chess player actually. No, knight bd7 doesn't look good. Actually, then b3 is perfect idea. No, actually b3 is played not only to fiancetta the bishop to b2. Yeah, bishop b2 was actually the best move, but they, yes, parallax is now correct. They intend to play bishop a3 and exchange the bishops. For example, if you do this, after bishop a3, they get rid of their bad bishop. You have to exchange your good bishop, which actually is required for black to start the attack on the king side. If you play, for example, bishop c7, then you can't castle anymore. That's the problem. So b3, that's why queen e7, to stop bishop a3 activity. Bishop b2. No, castle makes sense. I would castle in this position. Ian Nepomniachtchi played b6, which is a good move. Queen c1, bishop b7, and now they finally play bishop a3. So they spent a lot of tempers to be able to exchange the bishops. How should we continue? What's your opinion? No, castling, for example. Yeah, but then bishop d6, queen takes d6. And the position is approximately equal. What else? Maybe take on a3. Oh, if you take on a3, queen takes queen, knight takes a3, knight bd7, and I still believe white is slightly better. If we don't want to exchange our bishop, then we should close it. I mean, we should close the diagonal. Knight c3, knight bd7. C takes d5, e takes d5. That actually, in my opinion, is a mistake. This is where black can really favor. Why? Because it opens the e file, e6 is no longer the object of the attack. Oh, taken with the knight could make sense as well, actually. If you want, you can do like that. But if you take with the pawn, it means you're playing for a win. If knight b5 here, bishop b8, d takes e5, b takes e5, and if knight bd4, black can just continue with g6. And probably bishop b5 could offer some initiative, but bishop d6. So white played an ordinary move, queen c2, to attack here. How would you continue in this position if you were black? This is where you have three logical moves. What are they? Oh, g6 is a logical move. C takes d4. Why c takes d4 is a logical move? I don't think so. C takes d4, maybe they take on d6 and then knight takes d4. I think it's in white favor. Oh, wait a sec. C takes d4, bishop takes d6, the queen is under attack, you have to take, then knight b5 and knight c7. But maybe knight c7 is, yeah, knight c7 and then knight d4. So there is no need to take the rook immediately, but actually you may. No, c takes d4 is a bad move. Knight e4, g6, and queen e6. No, almost correct. No, g6, which is a slow move. Castle, which is good move, because after queen f5 it's knight e4 and it's a discovered attack. And of course knight e4. Knight e4 to occupy the center means the most logical one. D takes c5, b takes c5, knight b5, bishop b8. But these bishops are quite aggressive and can potentially create serious problems to the enemy king. Rook ad1. Castle, finally, move 16 and black castled, which is too late. No, not too late, but late. Knight c3, attacking on d5. Knight df6. And all black pieces are looking at the king side. This is where white played a small inaccuracy. What actually black should do? So you see they have really good pieces. The number of minor pieces, I mean, there are no minor pieces being exchanged at the moment. That's why these two pawns are really good. They restrict enemy pieces' activity and support the center. Bishops are good as well. The only problem this rook, which could be better on c8 or on d8. Or on c8 probably. However, it's not a big problem because here white also has some perspective in the endgame. For example, this is how they can open the position and attack a2 together with the bishop on a3. Maybe a5 should be played after. Yeah, a5, a4, something like that. King h8 or just knight c3, bishop d6, rook c8, bishop goes back then, something like that. So there are several plans that could help black to improve their position and put the pressure on the king side. But white played rook f e1. Black could just continue in the ordinary way, play this move, play a6, play a5, take on c3, move the other knight to e4, and then play bishop d6, release the rook to e8. Or maybe here, or to c8, up to you, with a complicated but perspective position. However, what do you think Ian Nepomniachtchi played? Imagine you are black, what would you do after rook f to e1? Okay, first of all, let me explain it. When you are a grandmaster, you shouldn't look for a plan. The plan comes to your mind naturally. You just feel where the pieces should stay. For example, when my student Natalia, I've posted about her on my website, when she get a trophy. No, never mind, it's not about her, it's about Sergei Karakin. So she Sergei Karakin conducted event. He was a guest there and he was asked about what to do if you can't come up with a move, if you don't know what exactly to do in the position. And Sergei said that he can't answer the question because he never faced this problem. Looks weird because I believe every chess player once faces at least once. For example, myself, maybe twice or three times in a game, I just don't know what exactly to do. So he told that he never faced with such a problem where he doesn't know what to do because he is quite experienced, especially on their top level. He analyzed a lot of classical games by grandmasters from the past, and he just understands where the pieces should move. If he doesn't know what exactly to do, he puts the pieces to their better positions, where the pieces should be located ideally. This is also what Grandmaster Dmitry Bocharov told me when you know, when I was a candidate master, I wanted to become a FIDE master, and we were talking about the plans. I was trying to improve my ability to plan and to find the best plans to realize them. And he told me that he can't explain it. He just feels where the pieces should stay, where they are most effective. This is what differs us, club players or title players, but not grandmasters, from grandmasters, especially top grandmasters. In some positions, I also understand where the pieces should stay, but in some, I really struggle, and it's because I don't have enough experience in this type of the positions. That's why I have to think, I have to create, I have to analyze what happens there, what on this side, what weaknesses I can take into account when considering the next move, and so on. Okay, why did I explain it? I explain it because when you locate your pieces naturally, the next move comes to your mind immediately. And here, rook f1, okay, this is a mistake. All these pieces are good. Knight is good here, so knight f2. King f2, knight g4. If king goes back, no, king e3, it's a fork. If king goes there, it's a checkmate. This is a mate on f2. If king goes there, it's a smothered mate. It doesn't really matter who takes. Let's say the rook. Knight f2 is a checkmate. So that means that knight f2 is a strong move that attacks the rook, and the king can't capture the knight. How to play? Knight d5, trying to distract this knight. Knight takes knight, and now king takes f2. No, what can I say? White didn't lose a pawn, but their pawn structure is weakened, and e3 is now the object of the attack. However, queen e3 doesn't look good here. For example, if you play queen e3, king goes there, and they are about to attack your pieces with bishop c4. So that is actually a mistake. Well, if you play this move immediately, then bishop c4 right now, taking the advantage of the pin. So you see, it's a check. If knight moves, the queen is hanging. If king moves, the knight is lost for nothing. That's why taking on e3 doesn't work. Of course, Ian Nepomniachtchi, being a grandmaster, understood it. He played this move with a temper. Bishop c4, king h8. Oh, the queen is under the attack, so this bishop doesn't look good, so they just exchange on b4. Bishop d5, the way to simplify the position. Probably white wanted to simplify and protect this pawn with the king in the endgame. a5, bishop b7, queen takes b7. This position is in black favor. The pawn is located on e3, so this dark squared bishop can potentially pin it, and then black can increase the pressure. I'm not saying black is winning, but black definitely has more chances to succeed. Queen c5, bishop a7, queen d5, exchanging the queens. Ian decided to exchange them, but with f4 he puts the pressure. What would you do in this position if you were white? What's your opinion? Anirudh suggests knight d4. Okay, what other ideas do you have in mind? King e2. No, king e2 looks good, and then you have to play without a pawn. Maybe you have some compensation after knight e5, but I believe black has more winning chances. Knight d4 was played instead, but that move was a mistake. F takes e3. Now they have to play this move and play this position without the pawn. Well, probably rook f2, and black is winning. The second mistake was to capture on e3 with the king. And now black wins immediately. Check. King goes to d2. And what is the next move? What black should do to be able to win the game in 2 moves. It's not a checkmate, but it's time to resign for white. Rook f2 check. Rook f2. No, rook f2, the king can move to d3. Wait, no. Yeah, the king can move to d3. Rook f2, king d3. And you can't capture the rook because of the back rank mate. What else you can suggest, guys? Bishop takes d4. What's the purpose of bishop takes d4? Well, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, and what then? Okay, guys, no, it's just rook d8, taking the advantage of the pin. If, for example, rook d8, the knight is lost. In the game, it was played rook e5, but after bishop d4, the game is over. So rook d8 was the last move, and then the game was over. So let's sum it up. So first of all, when you're a grandmaster, you know a lot of openings, and you can adjust the strategy and transpose from one opening to the other one to be able to take the advantage of the inaccuracies that your opponent chooses because of his move order. Here the bishop was on c1, and applying a stone wall was a good idea. What then? Then you should locate, no, you should of course predict what your opponent gonna do and try to avoid it if you believe it's not in your favor. Then you should locate your pieces naturally. And if only you do this, you'll get a chance to take the advantage. For example, like Ian Nepomniachtchi did when he played knight f2. But he didn't get any material advantage, but he created a weakness on e3, which he could realize after he played bishop a7 and then f4. This position is in black favor, and maybe the engine could make a draw here, but a human not. Okay, fine. The next game that I prepared for today is the game that Ian Nepomniachtchi played against international master. Again, Ian is playing with black pieces. This is where he outplayed his opponent strategically. It was French defense. Bishop g5, bishop b4, Magnus variation, and the main move here is e5, after which we continue with h6. It takes, no, there are a lot of moves. The best one is to retreat. Bishop takes there, pawn takes, knight e4, and queen g4, and here either g6 or king f8. A very sharp variation, which I played when I was younger as black. No, I just want to show you if this move, then g5, of course, and the bishop g3 knight e4 is even more effective. If this move, then these. If they take with the pawn, then h takes g5, pawn takes g7, rook g8, and then the pawn is lost. Oh, for example, queen h5, then just queen f6, and queen takes g7. So black is always okay. e5 wasn't played. Instead, the opponent, his name is Thomas Williams, played knight g2. d takes e4, a3. It doesn't make sense to fight for that pawn because there are not enough resources to protect it. That's why Jan goes back. Bishop takes f6, and the most common move here is to take with the bishop, after which this position is solid, but the game is likely to end in a draw. I mean, it's difficult to play for 3 results for black in this position. That's why Ian Nepomniachtchi captures with the pawn, which is also a move that deserves attention and is quite typical for French defense. Knight takes e4 and b6. They try to take the advantage of the bishop pair. Moreover, this bishop is really bad and requires improvement. So with knight c3, they intend to play d5 and ruin our pawn structure. That's why c6 first. However, white understands that the bishop is blocked, so they have a chance to play g3 and bishop g2. Queen c7. Queen h6, attacking the king side. Now let's decide what black should do. What would you play if you were black? Castle queenside. Yeah, this is a good continuation. Castle queenside, and probably white should do the same thing. Because if only they castle kingside, black may initiate a kingside attack. Oh, something like bishop f8, f5, and bishop g7 could make sense as well. But castle queenside is the most simple. Queen h5, attacking the pawn on f7, then rook f8. And here castle queenside was a good idea. Because white understands that black is going to attack the king side. However, they thought that it's not risky, they believed, and they played castle. f5, fighting for the center and releasing the bishop. Knight goes to f4, knight f6. Now the queen has to retreat. It retreats to f3. And rook d8, attacking the pawn. That wasn't the best move, but okay. Rook a d1. Again, almost all black pieces allocated ideally. Okay, it's a good question. Why not to play c5 here? Because then white passes the game into the endgame. And I can't say that this position is in black favor. I would say it's approximately equal. Moreover, I would prefer to keep the bishops. I mean a bishop pair. So rook d8, rook a d1. Now, when the piece is allocated properly, how would you continue with black? What's your opinion? Okay, Parallax suggests h5, and actually h5 makes sense. Yes, guys, thank you. It's h5. With the idea of playing h4. What do you think white should do right now? Well, you know, when you're castle to the opposite sides, for example, one player castles to the king side, the other player castles to the queen side, then one of the most typical plan is to attack the enemy king with your pawns. So you initiate a pawn march and try to ruin his king's pawn cover to be able to open files and join your rooks to the attack. Your opponent probably does the same. What do you think? What white should do? When they see that your king is castled to the queen side and is on c8, how would you continue? Would you try to open the files on the c file or what? I mean the files on the queen side. Okay, Parallax, looks like you are playing better than an international master. So maybe it's better for us that you will be conducting our webinars instead of me, and actually you will be playing in the same tournaments as Ian Nepomniachtchi. So yes, h4. This prophylaxis was important to prevent black king side attack. For example, then king b8 prophylaxis, rook f1, bishop d6 trying to capture on f4, but knight c2, and white position is still solid. What did white played? It was international master. Instead, he played b4. His idea is generally correct, but before initiating the attack on the other side, he should first think about his own king safety. If he believes h4 is dangerous enough, then he should play the move on the king side to prevent black activity, and such a move was h4. That was his first mistake. So don't forget about prophylaxis. Don't only focus on the attack on the other side of the board. First, king safety first. So you know, Americans have such a principle, especially on their cruise ships. So safety first. When they, for example, decide to land on a certain island, they get a boat and go to the island and try to step on the land on that island, and if it's safe enough, then they do it. If not, they go back to the ship. So safety first. This is the principle that white should follow, but they didn't. Bishop d6, knight retreats to d3, and h4 with strong pressure. What's the idea? To take and maybe sacrifice the bishop. To take and maybe attack on h2 with the queen somehow. Now it's not possible, but it will be possible later. So several ideas. b5 was played instead. This is where Ian Nepomniachtchi played knight d5, and of course I understand his idea. He just wanted to keep the position complicated. He avoided exchanges with such a move. Because if, for example, he takes there, then it's queen b7. But he could play this, h takes g3 first, h takes g3, and then c takes b5, queen b7. After bishop b8, the endgame is more in black favor. But knight d5 is a natural move, especially if you believe you can succeed with this kingside attack. Knight takes d5, c takes d5, and now we see that this pawn maneuver was just a tempo loss, while black pawn maneuver allowed them to achieve something. Queen goes to e3, h takes g3 now. No, maybe f takes g3 makes more sense here. But h takes g3 was played. Prophylaxis, a4. Now the pawn here is not hanging. So for example, if queen takes c2, or maybe you will tell me what happens. What if black captures this free pawn? How white can play to be able to get some advantage of this inaccurate move. Rook c1. No, not rook c1. Rook c1. Rook c1 maybe queen a4 immediately, then queen b5. But rook a1 first, and then rook c1. Oh, for example, what? I mean rook c1 then. So if the queen retreats, rook fc1, queen goes to e7, a5, and they dominate on the open files. If, for example, here you play rook c8, they still play this move, you have to go there, and they just try to repeat the position and force a draw or force your queen to get to a5. And this is how black no longer can continue the attack. Without the queen there, you are unlikely to succeed. That's why rook c8 here. The idea of this move is not only to capture on c2, but to capture on d4. And this is what Ian Nepomniachtchi realized. Rook a1, queen c3, a5 looks natural, but after rook c4 the central pawn is lost. So this is where black applied another principle. When you are under the attack, you should open the position in the center or just create a counterplay in the center. So here, if they take on d4, they exchange the queens. After that, the checkmate on the queen side is almost impossible. That's why they have nothing to worry about it. And they are a pawn up, so they can just pass the game into the endgame. Moreover, they have a bishop pair. Oh, this is what White realized as well. That's why they didn't take on b6. They played a6, bishop c8, and now this pawn is lost. There is nothing they can do to protect. They played rook f d1, but queen takes d4. Oh, queen takes d4, rook takes d4, and what then? Almost nothing. This and these moves gonna be the next. Black is winning. Queen e2 was played instead, and they blundered bishop g3. The game was over. They resigned. 2 pawns down, plus black continues the attack on the king side. So what you may learn from this game? So first of all, remember about prophylaxis. If h4 was played earlier, then this attack won't be so strong. So safety first. Second thing, so if you play your castle to the opposite side, think about the attack on the enemy king. This is what White tried, but actually this move was ineffective. After this exchange on d5, the position is still closed. The c file cannot be opened, the b file and the a file are closed, and White doesn't have enough tempers to succeed. And then Black switched the plan and focused on the king's on the center activity, just captured the central pawn, exchange the queen, or could exchange the queens, and get absolutely winning endgame. So if you are under the attack, try to find a counterplay in the center or attack your opponent on the other side. Okay, so what do we have? We analyzed 3 games. One of the games was played by Ian Nepomniachtchi when he was 12, and this game teaches us how to defend the position properly and how to simplify if you believe that with that extra material you can win any position. The second game shows us that we should locate our pieces in the most natural way, and we should adjust our strategy or our opening repertoire on to what our opponent plays. So this is how we may take the advantage of his inaccuracies. And the third game just illustrates what may happen in case if they neglect prophylaxis and don't play h4. I'm sure that after watching this webinar you became a little bit closer to the grandmaster title, or maybe at least you understand how grandmasters think better. So what I want to tell you. More games like that can be found in my course, Play Chess Like Nepo. For example, here it is. And you can, because it's on sale and you can get a 50% discount, you can get it only for $49 and $50. This is 12 hours course, which covers almost all the aspects of chess game. Endgames, technique, defense, strategic play, calculation, tactical vision, attack, and openings. So let me share the link once again. If you have any questions about this course, you can also, or actually any other questions, you can also email me at tricksofchess@gmail.com. Okay, guys. What's my best course for improving middle games? A question by Peter. Okay, let me show you. So for middle games, I think my best course is to how to find a game plan. Chess strategies, how to make a game plan. This is the best one. So here you can either get it for 39 or by paying 15 per month. Or you can just email me and ask if there will be any discounts on this course in the nearest future. So this is the link for you. Okay, now guys, we have some time, so I would like to talk to you about the game that Magnus Carlsen is playing against Ian Nepomniachtchi at the moment. So as we discussed, it was Russian game, and Ian Nepomniachtchi played h5, queen e1. They exchanged the bishops, rook e8, that's fine, rook h6. So this is where we stopped when we started the webinar, and queen g5 was played by Magnus, which is good move. c6 to support the center. Maybe not the best option. Maybe it could make sense to counterattack. The rook is hanging. For example, queen b4. They have to take because their rook is hanging. Bishop e8, queen d5, but queen b2. And this pawn structure doesn't look good, and probably this is where our black could overtake the initiative. But c6, rook e8. Bishop takes e8, rook e1, queen f6, exchanging the queens and attacking on d4. However, queen e3, the bishop is hanging. Bishop d7, prophylaxis, h4, which I believe is a mistake. I think here, oh, actually the engine tells me that h4 is good, but I think g4 looks better with the idea of playing g4. h4, c4, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, b5. That was a mistake. I think here Ian Nepomniachtchi blundered. After queen a3, he loses the pawn on a7. No, they played king g8 and queen a7 in this position. Now, if b takes c3, it's queen d7, and I think white is winning. Extra pawn plus it's a passed pawn plus better pieces activity. Instead, in this position, Ian can play maybe queen d6 or queen d8. No, queen d6 looks more natural. Then bishop d3, threatening with a check, which is not a checkmate. Yeah, it's not a checkmate, but it's still dangerous. And then what? g6, but then the rook is trapped. If, let's say, something like maybe rook h5, then queen e8, queen f8, maybe queen b7. But even without the queens, the endgame is almost winning for white. So I believe in this game Magnus Carlsen is more likely to succeed. What do you think, guys? Now this is the position. White is a pawn up. Oh, bishop h3 could be a good option, but then check. King goes there and queen f7. And if something like that, the game should be over soon. So that's why they would have to take, and in this position black is still one pawn down. Yeah, bishop h3, the move that I just demonstrated. But check here and queen f7, or maybe queen f7 right now. Yeah, actually, guys, unfortunately, the chances for Magnus to win are much higher now, and if he wins the second game, I mean, if he wins this game, his advantage will be enough to prove that he will be the next world champion. I mean, he will still hold his title. Oh, they both have approximately 30 minutes on their clock, so they are not in a time trouble. What else I want to share with you guys? I've just released. Let me again share my screen. So on my YouTube channel, I just released the analysis of the game 6, which Magnus Carlsen won against Ian Nepomniachtchi. So this is where I explain, I mean, I analyze it in details, so please watch. This game was really epic. No, black was better for a while, but then black made a critical mistake. So everything is shown here. I'll share the link. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Yeah, maybe I should send the link of my webinars that I devoted to Nepa, and it helped him to just keep in mind how strong he was. Maybe I should also sell the course Play Chess Like Nepa to Nepa, and this is where he can learn from his own games. Okay, fine. Thank you guys for coming. Hope to see you next Sunday. And if you have any perfect advices of what I can share on the next webinar, please let me know. By the way, in the game after queen a7, Jan played queen d8. Probably bishop has to retreat now. Thank you and see you next Sunday. Any questions, don't hesitate to ask me by email, and also if you are looking for private coaching, you can also send me an email, and I'll explain how I conduct them, my strategy and my training program. Okay, see you.